Okay, cool. Let's kick it off punctually. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first of our series of diversity and inclusion panels here at NAACL. My name is Sabine Weber. I'm a PhD student at the University of Edinburgh and an organizer with Queer in AI, and my pronouns are she, her. And when virtual conferences came into being during the corona pandemic, they could have been a step towards opening up the research community to everybody, regardless of their ability to travel to an actual physical conference. But the reality, unfortunately, looks different. Tonight, I'm here with Diana Galvan, Hadi El Sahar, Naomi Safra, and Salome Osei to discuss the barriers that are still in place and what needs to change to make conferences truly diverse and inclusive. We have live captioning for tonight, so we would ask everybody to mute themselves when they are not speaking, and when they're starting to speak to briefly say their name, so our captioner could do the transcription and get everything right. So wait, Pranav said that I have to enable the live transcript, but I did that. Wait a second. Are they not show subtitles? Sorry for the technical. Capture screen. So I don't know why we can't see the captions actually at the moment. Can anybody just quickly type in the chat if they can see the captions? Okay. Okay, nothing's happening. No captions. Okay. Show subtitles. Live transcript on. Should be. Oh God, I'm sorry, folks. Okay, I don't really know what to do here, so I guess we have to just go forward. Okay, do not have the code to allow caption stream. My tech support is waiting for an email reply. Okay, okay. I'm sorry about the captioning mishap. I think we just have to go forward with this and hope that it maybe clears up. I don't know. I'm sorry. Anyways, let's get back to our topic, that is diversity and inclusion in conferences. Sorry for the mishap. Let's start it off with a round of introductions first, where I would ask you to each say a few sentences about yourself and how you come to be involved with the effort for diverse and inclusive NLP. So let's start off with Salome Osei, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Salome Osei, and I'm from Ghana. I am part of the Masakani NLP group. I'm also part of the Ghana NLP group, and then an organizer for Black in AI. So this is how I entered the NLP community through my master's program in the African Masters of Machine Intelligence. So when I was done, I joined communities who were into NLP, like Masakani, and then here I am.
That's great. Welcome to our panel. Let's now switch to Diana.
Thank you, Sabine. Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Galvan, and I am originally from Inclusivity. However, I've been living in Japan for 6 years now. I started, I believe, in 2019, first as an attendee of the Queer in AI events. That's how I started like participating in the diversity and inclusion. And then from there, I wanted to see like something similar for another community that I belong, which is the Latin American community. So together with some other professor, Luciana Benotti, which probably you're like familiar with, like we like came up with the idea with starting like doing social events for like in NLP for Latinx. And that's how it all started. So we've been working on that in the past, I think like almost for a year. And yes, so the main goal is to like increase the visibility of the community. You know, there are like many things that probably we're going to talk about like here right now. Like there are many things that we need to say, and we would like people to listen and of course like receive opinions of like many issues that we have in common with other underrepresented communities.
Thank you. Next on, please, Hadi.
All right, thanks, Sabine. My name is Hadi. I'm a researcher in Naval Labs Europe. I'm currently living in France, but so on the opposite side of where I grew up, which I grew up in Cairo in Egypt. And while growing up and trying to enter the research community, I've found that not everyone has the same head start in the race, or if we call what we're doing a race. So I started being concerned a lot about financial limitations and travel restrictions. Funny anecdote, that's the first NAACL for me to attend, and you could all guess why my first NAACL is the online NAACL. So, and then later on, I've been concerned with these issues. I've joined the wonderful community of Masakani for African NLP. We have been trying to maybe at least make the situation somehow better for people who faced similar situations than us, similar to us when we were starting our career. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. And last but not least, Naomi.
Hi, Naomi. I first became involved, I suppose, as like a advocate for disabled people, and a member of like the accessibility subcommittee at like ACL last year and so on. This is because I got involved with this because I have a neurological condition that makes it difficult for me to type and write, as well as sometimes speak. And obviously that is somewhat limiting when you are trying to do a job that involves mostly programming and writing out math and speaking often. So I dictate pretty much all my code, and I try to sort of shepherd other people through this, since it's a very common issue increasingly for people to lose their ability to interact with computers through the common interfaces that abled people use.
Cool, thank you. So let's start it off with a broad question. I think Hadi already touched up on this a little bit. What are barriers for people to participate in conferences, even if they like take place in virtual environment like now? I think Hadi has special experience there because he was one of the organizers of the Africa NLP workshop. So I think I want to hand this questions first over to him, but then like open it up to everybody.
Okay, so Hadi here. I would say we don't have, so as we discussed earlier, like many times, I think that we should not put all the limitations in one bucket, right? There are people who have financial limitations, and these might be the obvious ones. The people who have travel restrictions, even financial limitations might not be a problem for them. The people who have a problem of integrating inside the conferences, so they could attend the conference, but they have hostile attitude towards them, or they feel unwelcomed. There are people who have been have some sort of other limitation that I'm not aware of because I'm facing these. So I would say would be more aware of the financial and travel restrictions of these because I experienced them firsthand, and I would let others actually elaborate more on the other aspects of limitations.
Okay, so let's hand it over to Salome, for example. I remember you already talked, like beforehand, we talked about like the different kinds of limitations, and yeah, maybe you take it from here.
So for my side, I think that I would also support Heidi because it's not easy coming from Africa and getting visas to these European and American countries. It's often very hard, especially if you are from countries that has been labeled as countries where people are tagged as not returning after the conferences or after traveling or anything like that. Because of that, I find it very difficult to accept that conferences are only taking place online now after there was a pandemic. Meanwhile, when there was that trouble of people not making it because of the visa issues, we closed our minds and our eyes into finding solutions to these problems. So aside the travel restrictions, which Heidi already mentioned, and the financial constraints as well, I think that it also has to do with where the conferences are, the choosing of the place where the conference should be. This is also one major factor. We don't know how the choosing is done, and we obviously don't also know where it is supposed to be. So is it like it's a pool and then we discuss where this is going to be? Do we look at where people are coming from, their backgrounds, whether everybody will be able to make it to the conference? Do we consider any other factors that are available? So these are some of the problems that I would, on my end, identify, because some way, somehow, I have faced a similar challenge.
Yeah, that's Naomi, go ahead.
Naomi here. I want to add a point from a perspective of someone who is from a wealthy country. I literally have multiple passports from just like the most advantaged countries from an immigration, but that everyone sort of has this, we have these sort of like surface level thinking often that this country is liberal, this country is pro-immigrant, this country is like anti-immigrant, this country, blah, 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 when it comes to all of the wealthy nations. And people have a ranking in their mind, but that ranking doesn't actually reflect how hard it is for most people to get visas to these countries. The politics that we sort of associate with each country often are not actually like reflective, like, and this is why when people started realizing that America had this, like in 2016, people suddenly noticed that America had all of these issues with visas, and everyone said, oh, well, let's move all the conferences to Canada. And then if you talk to anyone from Africa, and you can add to this if you like, that they would say, oh no, like Canada is also terrible to get a visa to, right? And so I think that there was something to this idea that like, let's move away from these core wealthy countries in terms of where we locate. Yeah.
So yeah, like this is an interesting point. As Salome say, we don't really, like, it's not really transparent how countries are being chosen, right? And maybe this is a good point also to hand over to Diana, because this conference is taking part in Mexico. The EMNLP is although virtual, taking part in the Dominican Republic. And nevertheless, there's an underrepresentation of the Latinx community in NLP at these conferences, even though they're hosted here. So I was wondering, Diana, what are your thoughts on like this kind of discrepancy that there exists, right? That like we're supposed to be in Mexico somehow, but also we're not.
Hi, Diana here. So yeah, like totally. the for example, like this like visa issue, as like you just mentioned, like for example, I think like before like getting into like the local aspect of, for example, like NAACL that was supposed to be hosted in Mexico. Like yeah, this visa issue, I think like for many Latin Americans, like not only from Mexico, like let's consider like most in the case of NAACL, for example, right? Like most of the conferences like before this one that was supposed to be hosted in Mexico, it's hosted either in Canada or the US, right? And I think like everyone has heard at least a little bit like the open issue that was with previous governments in the US, particularly towards Mexicans or Latin Americans in particular. So getting a visa, but even before that, getting a US visa or a Canadian visa is not that easy for us. That's why I remember when I was a kid, like my family like got the visas for us, because for them they had a job. Then when you get that for your kids, it's easier. And then when you become an adult, you can only extend it. That makes the process very easier. But if you as an adult want to like get the visa for your first time, it takes a very long time. There's a lot of things like to prove that honestly, like pretty much you're not going to the US to get a job, that you don't want to stay in there, that you have a stable situation in your country. So it is very complicated. So I can imagine like people like they need to attend the conference, they need to go through the pre-visa process, and it just becomes like a mess. And most of the people, I guess, probably don't attend because of that. The financial issue, I mean, we can get into details later, but yeah, mostly I will say that most of Latin Americans also face that issue. So is this like paperwork issue? Then also like paying for the visa is not cheap. So yeah, in that sense, I was like, yeah, that's how like Latin Americans struggle with like traveling. And right now in the particular case of like the conference, like being held, like NAACL happening virtually in Mexico City, then we have another major conference happening there in Dominican Republic. So diversity and inclusion, I mean, also is about feeling welcome. I feel like Haiti said something regarding that. So it's about like the people feeling welcome, that you belong, right? So I think like lately, like even though there are like two major conferences happening in two Latin American countries, it looks like it was like only the name, right? It's like as if it's like, oh, like Mexico is very nice. I'm just looking forward to like for the sightseeing part, right? As if it is like only for like traveling, when there is a huge opportunity to engage with the local community, right? In the case of Mexico, there is like an increase and a growing NLP community. Even like myself, I am not familiar with the community in Dominican Republic, but it would be a good like chance to connect with them. And I don't think that's happening. So something that could like mean something like besides, like the title saying like, yeah, NAACL hosted at Mexico, it didn't like really go further than that.
Yeah, that's totally a valid point, right? That this bridge between local NLP communities and the conference organizers does not exist somehow. And maybe we can take this over to like who is actually making the decisions, who are the planners and so on. Like you earlier also said something about the visa and like the time that it takes to set everything up and do everything, and that is something that keeps people from attending, because by the time you get a visa, the deadline is practically over and you can't really decide whether you will attend or not. So I was wondering how, from your experience as organizers and as attendees, what is it that conferences could actually do to make this better, both in like the virtual and the non-virtual realm? Like what would you wish from like future conference organizers as rules or as guidelines to make this system better for everybody? So like, I don't know, whoever wants to say something, just go for it.
I could say something about the Hadi here for the captioning. Yeah, I could say something about this. I think globally or from a general point of view, ad hoc solutions will not take us any far. And we should take out this point of view that the chairs or the organizers, even if they're socially connected or aware of what's happening in the world or having friends from different communities, will be able to anticipate and know all the problems of all communities. And given that, let's just involve the communities themselves. Let's look at, I don't know how I honestly have been doing NLP for maybe 10 years so far. I don't know how ACL diversity and inclusion chairs are being selected. I believe it's on, I think, recommendation based, but also not only that, but we see every year one of each community being selected. So this year we have somebody from Black and AI. Next year we have somebody from not any community anymore. And the third year we have somebody from the LGBT community. And then this is, I think, related to the act of just tokenism. We try to like, hey, we just represent all of you together in one. And it happens that maybe even myself, even if I'm just know about financial problems, I might not know actually about the visa issues. And that's one of the problems that happens, is that you get choices like Dominican Republic, and you would say, oh, Dominican Republic might be open in terms of visas than US under Donald Trump, for example. But then you never ask yourself how many embassies of Dominican Republic exists in the world, right? Do we have an embassy of Dominican Republic in Egypt? And then you get something like somebody from Senegal has to travel to Cairo for the Dominican Republic for the embassy of Dominican Republic to get an easy visa, but you still have to get a visa for Egypt to get the visa for Dominican Republic, right? Those absurd things because nobody asked anybody from those communities. And people feel the shame of, oh, it would look bad if I'm the chair of this community that I don't know how the visa situations happened. No, just ask the communities, involve people from each community, make a board of inclusion in all chairs, in all conferences, and just involve them. I think this is beyond any ad hoc solutions. That's what will get us as far as possible. Yeah, thanks.
So Salome here. I wanted to add something. So since we don't know which embassies or places that people would be coming from, would it be wise then to actually like get from these communities that Heidi mentioned, like a poll to talk about some of the challenges, or if a particular country that we are choosing for this conference would have to the individuals. So we reach out to the communities and we ask them, what are some of the challenges that your people are most likely to face due to the fact that we are choosing this country? And then they would bring these problems. And then also they'll be able to say that, okay, we can solve this problem this way or that way. I think that could also be something that we can look at. I mean, we are talking about the problems, but we could also suggest some things that could be done. And another thing is that I don't know how these countries are choosing, and if the embassies or the country, the representatives or the ambassadors of each countries are told that, okay, we're having this conference here and we're expecting people from this country. So do they have any restrictions? Or even if somebody is denied visa, do we have a committee that would look out for why these persons were refused or rejected these visas? So it will be like we have to look up to the bottom to exactly know why people are being rejected or will not be able to show up for this conference. Like I said, if not because of the COVID, we wouldn't have actually known that there's a way to actually do conferences online. But at that time, online conferencing was going to be a solution to some of the people who could not make it. But here we are.
Diana here. I just want to add that besides that, I totally agree with Heidi and Salome. I feel like in the end, what we are expecting, like what we would like to see is the organizers to get involved with us, with the communities, right? Like, for example, like this panel, I think was a very good idea. But I mean, I wonder like how many people from the organizing committees listening to this, right? Like, I think like even yourself, like you, like Sabine, who's organizing like this, even you are part of one of these underrepresented communities. So you can empathize with the situation of the Latin American community, with the African community, right? Like, I think it's probably easier for us, like as part of one or many of these communities, to empathize with each other. But I think like what we would expect from the organizer is that, like Katie said, like just like get in touch, get involved. We want that. That's what should happen. I think that should be the first step. Because when, I mean, there is this speech about like we, the NLP community, and we have we, a community, but then like from our perspective, it looks like we and community just is not including us, right? Because when the conferences are being planned, like even from the traveling point of view, is not considering like all these issues that like people from our communities like need to face. Like these challenges are like completely unknown. I want to believe for them. I don't want to say that they know them and they ignore them. I think like we need to start from, okay, maybe most of the times what's happening is they don't really know about it, right? And that is okay. What is not okay is not being willing to take the step of getting involved, of daring to ask, right? Like, okay, so what is your community? What kind of challenges are your community are facing, right? Like just like listen to them, try to empathize and understand the NLP community, even if it is true that most of them like reside in the US or in Europe, in the end, there are like people from all over the world participating, and you need to take into consideration all of them, right? So I think that that will be what I will expect from them.
Naomi here as the representative of people who are from core wealthy nations. That a lot of the people that I know who have immigration restrictions obviously live in places like the United States or the UK. And often they can't leave the countries they're in. And so there is always going to be this constant tension on that front, where if you move a conference down to Mexico, then maybe now you have a student who's from Iran who lives in the US who now can't attend because they can't get back into their country. And yeah, so I think that there's always going to be so much tension between all of the different communities that have so many different needs, even when it comes to something like immigration restrictions.
Could I add something on this? Oh, Hadi here. Yes, I do agree. And I do agree that, so for example, on what happened with the sanctions or the travel ban of many people, many Iranians got, and other nationalities, I assume, got stuck in the US. They can't leave. And I agree. And the solution is we don't put the burden on in a tweet or something to find a solution. The solution will eventually come, and the solution should be adaptable by huge amount of discussions if you involve all the people, all the stakeholders that are involved. Do people care to find that solution? I have high doubts. So maybe that's the time to say that anecdote. On 2018, we proposed this present anywhere policy, and people signed it, like huge amount of people, NLP community. I think maybe around 300, 400 people signed it. And the ACL board back then said, no, we just don't do it. It's very hard to apply, right? What happened last month is we have ACL rolling review. It's exactly the same idea, but just when people want to apply something, we do it, right? Video conferencing in videos. Could I record my presentation? Could I do video conferencing? I cannot attend, or I care about the planet. I don't want to take a plane, right? No, not possible. Maybe not. You have to talk to the chair to find this possible. Then we have COVID. And then in 4 months, iClear comes totally online. So these solutions are possible if people put enough time and effort in them. And I believe that the situation will change always, but you just have to have the right people who have, as Diana said, have the empathy and compassion to find a solution, not just act as I want to, oh, we have to have an inclusivity chair for the conference, so let's just hire somebody. Do you know somebody?
Yeah, that is really an interesting point, because there is no standing organ in the ACL who like tries to like check for all of these things, right? And then it always happens if like a critical mass of the people in Europe and in the US think something is a good idea, then it gets passed. Like that is like very problematic, I think. This is maybe a good point to take the one question that we have in the Q&A. The question is, ACL conferences have been either in person or online in the past. If a hybrid format online plus in person is adopted in the future, what do you think are barriers to inclusion, and what do we need to be aware of? So whoever wants to take the question, please go ahead.
Sorry,
Okay.
Diana, here. Can you repeat it, please? So even if like Naomi like answers, I was like trying to look for the questions in the chat, so I can like read it and prepare for it, but I didn't find it. So sorry.
Oh, you can at the Q&A, like at the bottom bar, there's like chat and Q&A are two separate things.
Yeah. So the question was, ACL conferences have been either in person or online in the past, or now it's happening online. If a hybrid format is to come in the future that combines online and in person, what do you think are barriers to the inclusion that we have to be aware of, and what can we do?
Okay, so here, I'm going to talk for a moment about the things that I have struggled with, Naomi here, about online conferences. And different people have different struggles, because a lot of people who use screen readers are going to have trouble with interacting with a virtual conference that has a particular like visual interface, for instance, dealing with something like GatherTown or anything like that, right? But for me, I have trouble interfacing sometimes when we're in GatherTown, where you're expected to be able to simultaneously talk and also like move around the map, which I can sometimes do, but I sometimes cannot, since I have to dictate things a lot of the time. And also when we are dealing with something like correcting your own transcriptions, it's really great that we have these like transcription setups, and that we're now expecting people to do their transcriptions before the actual conference, that they're actually supposed to have these things made available. But when everyone is expected to correct what a automated speech recognition system thinks you have said, and the one thing I can't do reliably is select the correct homophone and enter a corrected homophone for whatever word. So these are problems that I have. Other people, like I was saying, they'll have problems with screen readers. So that's something that you always need awareness of. There's ways in which online conferences can be limited for people who interact with computers in different ways, either, who are deaf, blind, or just disabled in ways that make it difficult for them to interface through a keyboard or mouse. Like all of these things are difficult, but then also you have the problems where, like, for people who actually are presenting, and not just the attendees, they also have troubles with when you put an increasing load of responsibilities on a presenter in terms of correcting and writing their own transcriptions, and like recording videos ahead of time for people who are, say, like transitioning, let's say, and don't actually want video to be up there. Just as an example, there's so many reasons why a person might not want to do the added labor or to have things recorded for posterity at a conference.
So do you see like kind of a duality there, like, the virtual conferences puts more load on the participants to like create their own content versus traveling somewhere creates a load for people to deal with borders and visas and other things? Like, I don't know, like one thing that I've heard in the past about like hybrid conferences, that it kind of creates the danger of like a two-class conference where like kind of the people who can't afford the money to and the visa to travel will be relegated to a virtual platform where there's more labor for them involved. Like, what are your opinions about that? Like the kind of hopes and fears about like a hybrid conference setup in the future?
Follow me here. So both conferences have their own problems. I believe we've mentioned a lot of them. But what would be much bigger is that the difference between people who would want to be on site and people who would want to be online. In that case, what will be the payment structure? Who is paying for the conference? Who is not paying, and etc. And then it would even give the embassies the opportunity to actually refuse people visas, because I mean it's online and it is on site, so you have no reason to actually say that you want to specifically be in the country. Now, if we corner it back to where we choose the conferences to be, for example, could we choose the countries so that it would be closer to a place where each and every person could actually go to without having problems of visas? And I mean, why is it that most of the conferences happen in Europe or in the US and not anywhere else on the planet? For example, a major conference could come to Africa. I think that one of them was supposed to happen, but it never did. But have we considered sorry, my light is bad. Have we considered these possible solutions? And she talked about captioning for the disabled. If, for example, a disabled person, does not get the visas, it means we are restricting the person to attend online. Have we provided the necessary things for this person to be actually online? Because if it's online or if it is hybrid, then I think that much of the organization will go into one. So it's either we are too focused on the online one or we are focused on the main event, and then one gets left out. Yeah.
Hi, Diana here. I will add to what they already said that, for example, like now considering like what does like a hybrid conference, like it means that, so it could either, it's going to be like participants are going to have like the option to either attend in person or attend online, right? So particularly in the case, like I think that we have like talked a lot about like what like traveling, like if you attend in person and you're not living in the host country or even the host city, like the cost that it implies, right? But on the other hand, we have online thing, and I think like we kind of all agree, like the representatives here, that the financial issues are like one issue that we have in common, right? So yes, traveling expenses do not become an issue when you participate online, but there are like other things to consider about, for example, like internet access, like something very basic, right? Like you need internet, at least a good connection to participate, because like other time, I feel like this like streaming audio, video, and everything. Like for example, right now I am living in Japan, and I can see like probably why in here there's like no problem with the connection. But I wonder if I were like attending this with my connection in Mexico, if it will like I have the same experience. Again, like if you go backwards, like at least I know that I had access to an internet connection, like even having access to a computer, a microphone. It was not a problem for me, but in general, another issue, like not exclusive to Mexico, I believe that also this happens in the Latin American community in general. Some people don't even have access to those resources, like, to those like basic services, right? Like an internet connection, a decent internet connection. I think like this is like something that I've seen with the Queer in the AI group, like that you provide like grants, right? Like kind of like a grant for that. So I think like that would be nice to see, like from coming from ACL, right? Like I think like that's also, that would be nice to see. I don't know, I feel like thinking of, I'm trying to think about like things that I haven't considered until now, like for example, people that need to dictate. There's probably also, we don't have a representative of that here right now, but I wonder if, for example, like sign language, it will be hard probably to integrate that to every video, maybe for the presenters, but at least the main, in the main stage, the keynote speakers, you know, like something like that, like something that recognizes that there are many types of individuals in our community, and what works for most of us might not work for someone, and that's enough for that person to not feel included.
Naomi here. Just to add one more thing, I think that the largest challenge in a hybrid conference is how do you have hybrid poster sessions? And if it's like, are you going to split it into like everyone has to do both a virtual session and a live session if they can do a live session or whatever, right? Like all of these things, like is this the way that it's going to go? Or are you going to have something where you try to combine the two? Because poster sessions are very essential for a lot of people who are disabled, in fact, like in general. If you're blind or if you have dyslexia, then being able to have a conversation with an author is something that is a lot faster than getting the gist of a paper any other way, including, you know, and for a blind person, often including a presentation, because not all presentations are, it's not always possible, in fact, to gear a presentation towards blind people, depending on what topic you're presenting on and what you're trying to convey. So I think all of these kinds of like poster sessions are really integral to a conference, and like that's the main thing that would have to be tackled, I think, in any hybrid setting. Because I mean, of course, like, you know, there's the hallway track kind of stuff, but that's just, those are just going to be very distinct things when it comes to in-person and virtual, whereas a poster session, you really have something very specific you're trying to accomplish, which is people learning what's in a paper by having a conversation with the authors.
Hadi here. I wanted to follow up on the great ideas that has been presented now, and or the problems that have been also anticipated. I believe there could have been hundreds of others that we couldn't just pull out of our head now, right? And I wish to see this question. This question we always see on Twitter. People ask like, oh, so what do you think is the best place to make ACL next year, right? I don't know. I wish this question, instead of coming to us always, to be, hey, would you and the Masakani community would love to have a discussion about where to make ACL next year? I think that's the right question to do. Or, hey, and instead of just asking me, Hadi, as solutions to or problems that could be anticipated, is that to hire the diversity and inclusion chairs 1 year before. So that what stops us from hiring 2022 diversity and inclusion chairs now, today? Right? What stops us from this? I don't know, and I believe there will always be problems. I agree with you, Sabine, that there will be people who prefer the online setup again because they want to save fund, because they're underfunded groups, right? Not related to any limitations, but maybe this financial a bit. So regardless of the price of the conference, I don't want to send 10 people. That people would do it for the planet. They want to travel. but many people would love to go back to the offline conferences again, like on site. There could be lots of creative ideas and lots of opportunities that we are wasting just because we didn't talk to the active people that are concerned with these, that they could have lots of ideas in their mind, right? There could be something in between online and offline. Like, for example, each university locally could organize like a meetup for the conference where people could sit down together and browse the conference, right? Or network. And that could be a hybrid solution. There are unlimited, for example, one of the problems that we always face is the payment system of conferences. You could have volunteers, lots of people around are web developers, and they could really help you with a payment system that's accessible, where people could allow donations, for example. And the best way to do this is to just talk to the communities, engage them, make a communication channel that's like every year, not only 3 months before the conference, with each of these communities, and encourage people to make more communities, because I'm sure there are lots of people are not represented by the communities we have in ACL at the moment. They might have the issues that we personally don't relate to at all as well.
Yeah, those are really great points that we're hearing here, right? Like, I think one big issue is also like the time leading up to the conferences, where like the D&I chairs are nominated and everything. Like, as you said, it's 3 months before the conference starts, and this is no time scale that's realistic for people who need visa, or not realistic for like just dealing with all the problems that come up in an ad hoc manner, instead of like creating something that works and works again and works again. So it's like the difference between like playing a game of ping pong or actually like building a reliable structure that supports the community as we go onwards. So yeah, like what do you think is like the biggest barrier to these dialogues happening between the conference organizers and the communities? Like, is it just like a thing when to do with seniority, or with your geographical location, or like what is your intuition that like what is the missing puzzle piece for those problems to be solved in a more sustainable way than they're handled right now?
Hi, Diana here. I think I will have to agree with Katie that it has been shown that things could happen when there's like enough interest. So I will say that maybe the missing piece is interest from them, because they have shown that it could happen, right? Like right now we are having a virtual conference. So there are many things that are going on that apparently like some of them were requested in the past, but at the moment they were not considered as priority. Now the pandemic probably like pushed everyone to the online center. Like, okay, fine, we are going to do the conference online, right? But it could have happened before. So why do we need to wait until so what that's it, like why do we need to happen to some like major event like to push it to this? So why do we need for the organizers to be more empathetic with the visa situation, for example? Do we need them to like be them the ones like suffering these issues? Like, it's not necessary. That's what empathy is about. Like, even if you yourself haven't experienced it, you don't have to experience it yourself to relate. Rather, you need to be open and talk to the people that are like suffering like these challenges or some other issues, right? So I will say that that is the main missing piece.
I think it would be useful. I mean, the counterpoint of, you know, having a stable system that like always is, that always works and is in place, I think is the, is talking to people. And I think part of what would really help with that is to effectively find the people who aren't coming. And I mean, the easiest way to do this is maybe to look at the co-authors on papers who aren't attending or who aren't presenting, and to ask each of them what is preventing you from being able to effectively participate in this conference, because that is, I mean, it's not perfect, because obviously there's going to be some people who just won't submit to a conference that's in a place that they don't feel like they can go, but just finding the co-authors who aren't the presenting authors and saying, why is that, could give us a window into where the current system is lacking.
Hi, Hadi here. I think the right question is also in this case is how does that happen is basically or the right answer is empowering people who would like to solve these problems. So not saying we and us, why those people don't attend our conferences. I would say why part of us is not represented in our conferences, and that's the right question to ask. And then from this perspective, let's look at who I don't want to mention personal or attack people or respect to people who organize the conferences. I've organized part of it, but at the same time, it's not a volunteer work. I agree. I disagree. It's not a volunteer work. If you're an ACL chair, and let's be honest about it, your career benefits from this. Maybe that's a bit poking the elephant in the room, and there are lots of people who are very willing to take these positions, even unpaid positions, and these positions should be evaluated and should have some objectives. And according to these objectives, we could monitor and evaluate the performance of the chairs, even if they're just volunteers. And according to these criteria, we could vote for the next chair and to have more effective problem solving in this to these problems. The thing I've seen so far is that this is not the case at all. We are kind of grateful to anything that happens. So if this year we have more efforts in the direction of LGBT involvement in ACL conferences, then we clap for it and we dismiss every other problems that's not solved. And the answer is that there are lots of people who are willing to do the effort for free and as a volunteer job, and just involve them, empower them. There are lots of people who do lots of volunteer work and very concerned with these problems. Just empower them. We don't need university professors to be ACL diversity and inclusion chairs. All respect to university professors also, but it means in terms of time availability as well.
Salome here. So what can also be done is what was initially discussed, reaching out to the communities. So since the communities are local, they could bring us representatives. How about the diversity and inclusion chairs be very open, like too open to the extent that anybody could say that I want to be, and the person could apply, or representatives from various groups could choose people or elect people from their communities to actually be on the board or be chairs. Do we have to just have 4 or 5 people? No. How many communities do we have? We represent everybody. Each person can be, I mean, it's something we want to do to help the community. So why not just select each person who's in these communities to come and represent us? And then let's see if the diversity will come out. Because if I'm coming from a group like, say, Ghana NLP, I'm bringing Ghanaians. If I'm coming from Masakani, I'm bringing a whole lot of Africans from different backgrounds, different cultures, different roots. So I think that something like this could also be done to actually help involve everybody in the community.
Sabine here. I can like be very open about how I got like my job on like the diversity and inclusion panel, right? Like it all works more or less through personal networks at the moment that people ask you for that. I think it's a great point to make that, like, why aren't these positions advertised widely? Why isn't it that everybody knows how to become a diversity and inclusion chair, but rather it is something that like moves throughout like this personal networks that you can be lucky to be in. And if you're from a disadvantaged background, it's more likely that you're not lucky to be in these personal networks. So that's definitely a good point, and making the whole process more transparent would also, I think, greatly contribute towards more continuity in our efforts. Like Hadi said earlier, that like 1 year we have like a big LGBT focus, and the next year there will be like more financial grants, but overall it will be like this kind of haphazard movement rather than something that is actually consistently helpful to people. So I think they're great points. We're moving towards the end, so I think I would like to do a one last round where I give each of you like a minute or so for your final words. Like if you want, like what would be your takeaway message that you would want to give people? How can we make conferences better in the future? Let's start with Diana and whoever wants to take it after that.
Hi, Diana here. So my main takeaway from here, I will say, I wanted to follow up with what you were saying. I think one key word right now, like, will be like continuity. Like for example, like Katie started with that, how transparency, how the committee is being selected, but also like then like give like continuity to what is happening. Like probably like right now here in ACL, this is in NAACL, this is happening, right? But there's going to, even if there is like a lot of effort towards like diversity and inclusion in this particular conference, like who knows what's going to happen next, because the committee is going to, there's other people involved, right? It's a little bit like probably like a related, like similar to what happens in politics, I guess. So it's like, so somebody like made some effort, but you're not going to stay in power, let's say, like always, right? There's someone else coming up, and you don't have to discard what this person did. So there are like good things, bad things, you can analyze and then like go from there, right? So I think I would say that continuity, transparency, and empathy, that's what we need.
Salome here. So I would like to just say that we should bring the D&I chairs to the community. This is always what I would advocate for. So this will be my last. The D&I chairs locally. That's it.
Naomi here. I think that that the only way to effectively be like completely inclusive is to find all of the people who are currently limited from participating, and to get all of the input possible. And that might mean that you are serving individual people's needs, especially where disability is concerned, rather than finding a catch-all solution and saying, you know, sometimes you can just say, oh, well, we need to be screen reader friendly, we need to be colorblind friendly, broadly, but that's, but usually that's not the case. Disabled people are all very different from each other in their needs.
Hi, Hedy. I would like to say, to end up on a positive note, and I would say we are already partially there. Like I believe, honestly, we are on the correct path. Like having people from 3-4 different communities in NAACL already, that's good. I didn't see that in the beginning of my PhD. So we are already there. Whatever we are doing, we try to focus more on what we are doing. And as Diana said, let's just have more empathy in people and people's problems when they discuss it. But whatever we're doing, we are in the correct path, I hope.
Thank you very much for those very hopeful and positive end words. It was wonderful having you all here, and I hope I'll see some of you in the future again. And have a great ACL, NAACL. Have a great NAACL, everybody who joined us from the audience, and thank you very much for your questions and your participation. So have a great day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.